Fogo Island called our names a few times during this trip. The first time we took the ferry over for a day. We did the round trip on the MV Beaumont Hamel. The smaller ferry pressed into service while the regular ship was undergoing maintenance work. Our initial look at the heritage village of Tilting was from the hill above Mr. Foley's garden. Next visit we will stay at his B&B. This outport was first settled in the early 1600s by the French, followed by the Irish and English. Today the local people are investing a lot of sweat equity in maintaining cultural sites. There are great examples of old outbuildings, fishing stages and dories, fences and saltbox houses in this unique area. On to Joe Bat's Arm with its interesting stages and dories. Zita Cobb, born here but made her fortune in the high-tech world, has been investing to create a world-class artist and tourist destination. The Witch's Walk took us past a couple of beaches, some blue flag iris and pitcher plants, on the way out to one of the artist retreats that she has built overlooking the ocean. She also has construction of a hotel underway to house artists during these visits. Back along the Witch's Walk trail to the town, and then off to the Marconi Interpretive Site, which started in operation in 1912 above the town of Fogo, and which was an ideal spot to view that area and to catch up with the Camp Chief Hector Cups again. Then the Cups put in another appearance at the Lane Lookout overlooking Joe Bat's Arm in the distance. A few weeks later we visited Tilting Beach on a fabulous sunny Saturday afternoon. It was crowded. Along with our friends Barb and John Barron, we crossed the stream to get to the beach. Barb went for a refreshing wade in the water, while Ruth and John strolled along the beach and had a great conversation. In Joe Bat's Arm, young boys can still have fun being kids. These two boys had dammed the creek below their house and spent the day fishing for trout. Meanwhile, this leopard seal was having a relaxing day as well. In Nicole's cafe, there was a marvelous quilt titled Stages of the Past on display. Lots of traditional houses in Joe Bat's Arm, as well as great skies to see while the sun sets. Sunday morning, we drove through Bard Islands, where some model boats and fishermen caught our eye. A little further along, the Candace Sea was a must-stop-to-visit moment. Named after the current owner's granddaughter, this boat was built in 1954. It has had several lives, working the fishery as a bait skiff, as a cod trawler, and for squid jigging. The combination of the split cod and the fishermen in the Candace Sea made a great display. Somehow the Camp Cup showed up here, too. From there, we drove to the town of Fogo, where we followed the hiking trail behind the Marconi station to the abandoned village sites of Eastern Tickle, Shoal Tickle, and Lion's Den. Founded in the early 1800s, they were the home to planters, those settlers who operated fishing premises or fishing plantations, and other families who pursued the fishery. This root cellar was owned by the family of Eliza Lewis, who is the subject of a book and documentary titled Letters from Eliza. By the 1950s, everyone had moved from these places to larger towns by floating their houses to places like Joe Bat's Arm. Barb and Ruth were constantly on the watch for the many beautiful types of wildflowers along the trail. Blue flag iris, blue harebells, buttercups, a pitcher plant with a visiting ant, blueberry bushes in flower, rhodora, and Arctic cotton. Boat ribs used to be sawed from tree trunks like these ones, and John had a rest while waiting for us to catch up. In Fogo, we met this foursome, who proudly showed us an example from their afternoon of frog hunting. We wondered what Mother was going to say when they got home. Some of the fishing fleet were in. Lobster and crab season were ending. The historic Fogo United Church was hosting an interesting art show that drew in Barb, John, and Ruth. Dawn visited the old St. Andrew's Anglican graveyard across the street. The Walter Best and George Banks headstones told very different versions of longevity in the late 1800s. On our final trip to Fogo, we visited the Bleak House Museum. Built in 1916, it is filled with original items from the Earl family. Then back to Joe Bat's Arm for supper, and a few more shots of the waterfront. After supper, we went to see a play in Seldom, and Ruth spotted this caribou beside the road. The next day was off to Change Islands. This band entertained the eyes more than the ears. We got to enjoy several outport scenes in the sun this year, compared to our rainy trip last year, including old stages, traditional houses, and split cod drying beside the stage. We finished with a long wait in line for the ferry. The Earl W. Windsor was running 1 hour late that day, but it finally arrived and we all made it aboard.